Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Natalie Candela. I'm a hypnotherapist, a transformation coach, and a spiritual teacher. And today I'm going to be answering a question that was given to me by a friend. And the question is rather deep. Is there inherent order in nature, or is there just chaos and chance? So I have a lot to say about that. And I almost feel kind of a sense of overwhelm about all the things that I want to address. So I'm not sure how long this video is going to be. I'm going to do my best. I made some notes and I'll just let it happen. I'm gonna just create order out of chaos today. So some of the things I want to talk about are sacred geometry, sacred numbers, the rhythms and cycles of nature, God versus science, and some other things that will hopefully emerge from this chaos that's in my head right now. So the first thing is I want to give the answer. And the answer is, for me, very simple. Yes, there's absolutely order. It may appear as though there's just chance and random things happening and we don't know where we're going. And yes, we may not necessarily know all the steps that are coming up ahead of us, but there is absolutely beautiful order in the universe. And so that's what I want to point out and bring some examples of that. So the first thing I want to address is sacred geometry. And I'm going to talk about it together with numbers because geometry, of course, is all part of math and they kind of go together hand in hand. So sacred geometry is the idea that certain shapes have divine or sacred meaning to them. You might have seen the design of a flower of life, and that has a very sacred meaning that represents creation and the universe. What I want to talk about is the Fibonacci Code. So the Fibonacci Code is a sequence of numbers where each number is equal to the sum of the two previous numbers in the sequence. So what's significant about this sequence is that the ratio of each number to the other number is exactly 1.618. And that's the ratio that remains the same between each next number. Now, this ratio is also called the golden ratio or the divine ratio because this ratio shows up in nature everywhere, literally everywhere, from creatures small to the universes. Some of the examples would be the flowers, the design of the flowers that we see on Earth, the design of the leaves on a leafy plant, some of the vegetables that we eat. So cauliflower is a beautiful example. The sunflower seeds within the sunflower are arranged in that pattern. We also see this in animals. So for example, the shell of a snail appears to have the same code represented within it. The ratio is represented in the human body, in the proportions of the human body. And then if we look at the galaxies within the universe, you will see the same pattern emerging there. So this pattern of numbers that then is expressed in geometric shapes is occurring everywhere around us. And oh, and I just noticed I have sunflowers above me, so there it is. And it seems unlikely, at least to me, that it would be such a random thing. So I tend to think that there is some sort of intent behind an organization of nature that allows all these things to be designed in this particular pattern. Now, this pattern also happens to be in a pine cone, and pine cone represents actually a pineal gland, which is a gland that's located at the base of our spine. It's in the back of our head, at the base of the spine, at the top of the spinal column. And it's responsible for our perception of reality, for our perception of light and dark. And that's the gland that is represented as a third eye, because when it projects the light, it actually will project it through the center of our forehead. So that's why Hindus put a paint dot where the third eye is. So the shape of the pineal gland that is responsible for our ability to really see true reality. So instead of sort of sleepwalking inside kind of a matrix, it's our ability to really awaken, open our eye to true reality and see through the things that are clouding our judgment. That looks like a pine cone, and pine cone has that golden ratio all over it. It's designed that way. So this is where really nature sort of intersects with divinity and spirituality, and where meaning crosses lines. And this is what we're talking about when we're talking about sacred geometry. In alignment with that, I want to talk about numbers, because there's sacred meaning in numbers. The base 12 number system is at the foundation of creation. So the number 12 appears everywhere as well. And I'll just give you a few examples that I have written here. So in quantum physics, 12 represents the number of subatomic particles that all physical matter in the universe consists of. Then in astrology, of course, we have the 12 zodiac signs. We have 12 apostles of Christ in Christianity. In Buddhism, there are 12 stations in life. In Greek mythology, there are 12 gods and goddesses on the Olympus. Now, if you look at the number 12, it can be interpreted or understood in different combinations. So you can have 2 groups of 6, you can have 6 groups of 2, you can have 3 groups of 4, and 4 groups of 3. So what this symbolically allows us to understand is that we can present the whole through a variety of different expressions of its parts, or through the combination of its parts. And that to me actually represents God, because God is a combination of us all, and it expresses, it understands itself through the expression that we provide to it. So by allowing us to understand and experience the world, we then bring that knowledge into the whole, and the whole can express itself through our experiences. Now also at the center of the 12, so if you go into this, if you look at 12 numbers and you go into the middle of that, at the center of the 12 is a 6. And in numerology, 6 represents love, it represents God, which are one and the same. And so that also symbolically has the meaning that at the center of it all, the core of it all, is love, is the creator. So that's pretty neat. Speaking, of order and kind of meaning embedded in every little nook and cranny. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the question of evolution versus creation, because it also, I think, addresses the question of order and how we understand it. So of course there is this ongoing debate of whether we allow kind of science to guide us or whether we allow religion to guide us. And that takes us into two different camps. One is, do you believe in evolution? And another, do you believe in intelligent design or creation? So as humans, we tend to really choose the extremes and only say, well, it's either right this way or it's right this way. And that's actually a limitation of us humans in our thinking. So my answer to it would be yes to both. We definitely are evolving, and there is definitely a creation and intelligent design behind it. But I would also say that both sides have a very limited and not quite accurate view on their argument. So in terms of evolution, even though it seems to show that there is some sort of order in creation, it also, I think, argues that it was just a freak accident of nature, that something just fired in the wrong place or maybe in the right place, and the ape began to turn into a human. So in terms of just the reality of that argument, there are mathematical models, computer models, that are being run to check whether the amount of time that we spent evolving would have been enough for us to truly evolve from a monkey to who we are today. And there are, I'm not sure if it's all models, but there are definitely some models that show that the amount of time that we took to evolve this far is definitely unreasonable, because if it were possible that something was tweaked and we began to sort of split off and began to evolve into the intelligent human that we are today, we would still be somewhere in the monkey stage, because it would take millions of years more for us to really evolve this far. So something definitely happened, but then it happened really fast. The amount of time that we took to go from a near animal, or maybe an animal, to where we are today, a really self-aware, intelligent being that is seeking and questioning their connection with the divine, that time span was really fast. So something must have happened to really trigger it. And yes, I do believe there was an intervention. There was stepping in and an adjustment of our biology and an adjustment of our nature, so that, which allowed then the divine to begin to animate the human body, and the spirit to begin to walk in within this form on the earth. And that sort of activated like a homing signal for the soul, and that is what triggers us to ask these questions today. A modern ape would not ask a question about order and chaos, even though they've had the same amount of time to evolve. It just wouldn't have that awareness, whereas a human being does ask that question. So we're definitely at a different level of consciousness, at a different level of awareness. So what I believe is that there was an intervention that did adjust a human being to allow for that, to allow for divinity to become part of the human experience. And from that point on, humanity has been on a very concerted, I should say, search for the divine. You know, that's when religions began to develop, and religion is just sort of a format for our research. And you can be religious or not religious and still be searching. But on the whole, humanity is always searching for some sort of connection, for some sort of meaning, for some sort of purpose. And those are not things that a very smart animal would look for. They just don't have that pull. So yes, there is evolution. What I would call it is more of an evolution of consciousness. Initially, there was an evolution of biology, which was really assisted to happen. It didn't sort of natural and randomly occur. It was really targeted and really had a specific intent and purpose. And after that, there has been an evolution of consciousness, and we are still part of that evolution. Was there a creation? Absolutely. But that's, you know, that's a different conversation. We're talking here today about order. One of the things that I want to talk about before I get to science is the order of cycles and rhythms. So again, if everything was completely chaotic, then there wouldn't be patterns in life. You know, patterns show us that there is order. If there is a repeating way that something appears, that is an example of order. And there are rhythms and cycles everywhere in life. So, for example, there is the cycle of the planets and how they move through the sky. Whether you believe or not that they have any impact on us, we certainly, the astronomers certainly can track the pattern of the constellations and the stars and the planets moving around the sky. There is, with the planets, of course, there is the moon that's our satellite, and there is the cycle of the moon, and with that there's the cycle of reproduction that women experience. There are the circadian rhythms, which is the way that almost all living organisms are affected with the change of the light and the dark throughout the 24-hour period, which of course connects us to the sun. There are the cycles of the weather. There's the cooling and the warming cycle that help to refresh and reawaken and replenish the planet that we're living on. There are the cycles of the seasons, which are doing the same. They're helping to refresh the nature that lives on the planet. There are also cycles for the creatures that live on the planet. So what many of us understand as extinction, when a certain type of animal leaves the planet, is actually a cycle of the earth, so that when one type of animal leaves, another one comes in, and the earth actually decides what is better, what kind of animal is better adapted for the earth at that point. Now, humans have a very limited view of kind of the whole picture. We just kind of look through a little hole and we just kind of see just what we can see in front of us. And so when we experience a loss on the planet, we see is as really tragic, irreversible loss. But in physics, we learn that energy cannot be destroyed. It can only change into something else. So when an animal goes extinct, there is no irreversible loss. There is that energy that leaves that will change form, and it will come back and still be present on the planet. And we may feel sad that that particular shape of an animal no longer exists, but the universe doesn't really look at it that way, because to it, the energy is still there. So that's another way of sort of cycling through creation, those cycles and rhythms that exist all around us and that we are so used to, we may not even realize that they are the things that create order all around us, because they are pulling and pushing like the tides of the ocean. They create the magnetic force, the magnetic pull on the planet. All these things are working in such perfect order, but when we look at them, they just seem, well, it's just the ebb and flow of the ocean. Yeah, it's like we don't see the grandness of the design behind those things. So another aspect of order, or kind of how we perceive order, is this, again, seemingly eternal question, science versus religion. I want to separate religion from God, creator, because religion is just a framework through which some of us choose to experience the creator. I don't belong to any religion, so I can leave the structure out of it. So I would say science versus God. So science helps us understand how the world works. And those who believe in science, those whose religion is science, don't necessarily believe that there is any kind of intelligent design behind the creation. That things are just sort of, nature does its thing, and they are just discovering the laws of it, and it has nothing to do with some sort of creator behind it. And of course, those that believe in God, or I should say religious people, they may of course believe in science, but they also argue that, the person who places all the rules there and who just chooses which way things will go is the creator. That's the ultimate decision maker. So there is always this tug of war between what is real, and is it, do you accept science as an explanation of the world, or do you accept religion or God as an explanation of the world? And then there is a third group of people, and I belong to that group. They are mystics, and mystics have absolutely no conflict between science and God. And the reason is that if God is the creator of something, then it would make absolute sense that the creator would put some rules in place about how that creation is going to function. When you create something, you typically give it some order. You know, if you bake a cake, you're gonna arrange it in a certain pattern. You're not just gonna sort of slap the ingredients and throw them in the oven and say, well, whatever it looks like is fine. There is an order of steps that you take. There is an order of the shape that it takes. If you build something, there are blueprints that you use. There are specific tools. There is specific order. So when we create something, we always give it order because we understand what we're trying to achieve. So if you think about creation, then it would make sense that there would definitely be order within that creation. Cryon, which is a consciousness or collective energy that is channeled by Lee Carroll, calls God the master physicist. I would call God also the master scientist, because it's the creator who sets up the rules of the game. So I already talked about, when we create something, we would probably put some structure into it. But in addition to structure, we would also put some rules by which it operates. So if you play a computer game, there are always some sort of rules. If you do this, this will happen. And if you do this, this will happen. There is often timing set up for certain things to be triggered or certain activities to happen. So all of those are kind of the physics of that reality, of that virtual world. So to me, it makes absolute sense that a creator that creates a world, this physical reality, would put in place specific laws of physics, laws of biology, create a mathematical system, just create everything that will make this world function. So I really don't see a conflict at all between science and the idea of a creator behind this science. This science is the way that the creator is creating the world. So when I see scientists, to me, they are in service to the creator because they are learning to understand the creator. They are learning to understand how this world works. So I find it kind of amusing that scientists, some of them, argue that they don't believe in a creator, yet they are spending their lives studying to understand it without really acknowledging it, but that's what they're doing. So the problem, of course, is that our understanding of reality is somewhat limited because we are still maturing. We're still like kids in elementary school that don't know that there is something beyond the multiplication table. They think that once they learn multiplication, that's the height of knowledge. But they don't know that there's calculus coming many years down the line. They don't even have a concept of it yet. So that's how we are on this planet right now. We've learned certain things, we understood them, and think we've achieved, we've arrived. But we don't even have a concept of some of the things that are coming down the line in, many, many, many years. So when we got Newtonian mechanics as a way of explaining the world, that was at that point the height of of our understanding. And of course, we're still, deeply sort of steeped in that. We still use Newtonian mechanics as a way to really function in the world. However, we are beginning to really outgrow it because it really doesn't explain all of reality. And so now there is quantum physics that is emerging, and quantum physics is beginning to really see kind of how things are functioning, and they don't function the way that Newtonian mechanics explains them. They have almost a magical quality to how things function because time and space are no longer acting the way they are supposed to. And so as we are maturing as human beings and our science matures, our understanding of reality and our understanding of what's behind the reality, that creative force behind the scenes that is really setting up all these rules and setting up our experience on Earth, is evolving. And if we're open to it, then very soon science will walk hand in hand with the mystics on this planet that are teaching spirituality, because we are studying two sides of the same coin. We are just trying to understand how this creation works. So if you look at the world around us, just from the structures to the numbers to nature itself to the cycle and rhythms to how we look at our experience and to the progress itself that we've made in such a short amount of time, if you really begin to become aware of all of those things, you will see that there is an incredible amount of order and almost sacred connections all around us. Now, of course, we mostly walk around blissfully unaware of all of this, and often we're not very blissful in that unawareness. We're often quite miserable because we think or we perceive life as being so chaotic that we feel that we're always at the whim kind of nature and that anything could happen to us. But there is really such an incredible network of support and purpose that we are living within, that when people begin to really look into it and discover and increase their awareness, they just change the whole perception of reality. From things such, we haven't even talked about the order in terms of human experience, like synchronicities that guide us or the intuitive guidance that's available to us. We haven't talked about karma, which is sort of a pattern of creating order in a human experience, and that I'll probably do a whole other video on that, but that's also part of that structure of creating order. So there's so many things about just the human experience that can show you that there is order everywhere. But this video, this question was about the order in nature, and I hope that I gave you some highlights that will make you think. I mean, this topic really is enough to create a full-blown documentary, and I know that there have been some documentaries made on this topic. I will also put in the description some links to the sites that might give you more information, or where I found some of the information reference that I was looking for. So I hope this gives you some insights, some things to think about, and I hope you start seeing order, beautiful order, everywhere around you. Have a wonderful day. Please don't forget to subscribe and to click on the bell so that you're notified of all my future videos. And do leave me a comment. I love answering your comments. And please don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed the content. See you later.